Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, expanding health care coverage, the proposal that may have California setting an example for the rest of the nation.
More closed-door stadium negotiations between the Chargers and San Diego City leaders are planned. What does the first meeting tell us, and why a San Diego news outlet filed a lawsuit for the City of Carson documents? I'm Peggy Pico with an update, and what a San Diego researcher discovered on the decline of honeybees and its impact on bee colonies.
A GMO is what you want a GMO to be, I guess.
If we have a technology that can actually be more precise, that can give us exactly what we want, why wouldn't we move that direction?
What's in a name? The San Diego biotech company that may have found a way around the controversial GMO label. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. The Pentagon is investigating a big mistake at an Army biodefense facility after 51 laboratories received live anthrax samples without the proper safeguards. Military leaders today said that number may grow. The labs are scattered across California and 16 other states, as well as the District of Columbia. No one has been infected with the potentially deadly bacteria, but at least 31 lab workers are being treated for potential exposure.
So when we talk about risk to the public and what's happening with this box and workers who might have handled this box in the transportation chain, we believe that the risk is zero for the general public as well as for the people who've handled this box. 1 milliliter of liquid is not going to come out of this box. Where we believe the risk to be potential but extremely low is at the initiation of the packaging or at the individual who has received it.
The samples were also sent to labs in Canada, Australia, and Korea. Coming up on the PBS NewsHour, a closer look at what went wrong at an Army lab in Utah. Hoping to reduce smoking among young people, California lawmakers are tightening rules on cigarettes, pushing several bills through the state legislature. One would raise the age to buy cigarettes from 18 to 21, making the state among the first to raise the smoking age. Lawmakers say big tobacco targets young people because they're more likely to become addicted if they start smoking early. Another bill targets the increasingly popular electronic cigarettes, banning them from public spaces, including restaurants, buses, and hospitals. It would also classify e-cigarettes as tobacco products like cigarettes. Both bills now move to the State Assembly for consideration. State senators approved legislation that would make California the first in the nation to extend health coverage to children who are in the country illegally. The measure covers kids under 19 from low-income families. Regardless of their legal status, the bill allows others to purchase health insurance through Covered California.
This year's proposal, certainly the proposal was cut down from $350 million to $40 million, really focusing on getting kids coverage regardless of immigration status. There is a mechanism there to ensure that there could be caps and waiting lists for adults dependent on funding, but right now we are hoping to move something forward to build on to a foundation in the future to ensure that we can get care for everybody.
That bill now moves to the State Assembly for consideration. Insured patients who choose an in-network hospital may get a surprise bill from an out-of-network doctor. From our North County Bureau, KPBS reporter Kenny Goldberg explains how state lawmakers are trying to protect these patients.
Patients who select an in-network hospital expect to have a fixed amount of out-of-pocket expenses. But a recent survey finds nearly 1 out of 4 hospitalized Californians got an unexpected bill from an out-of-network doctor. Supporters of the Assembly bill say patients who play by their insurance company's rules shouldn't be penalized. After all, supporters argue hospital patients can't choose the anesthesiologist or the assistant surgeon. California already prohibits emergency room patients from getting surprise out-of-network bills. The measure to extend that ban to all patients who select an in-network facility has little opposition. The Assembly approved the bill by 69 to 1 vote. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
The use of nonprofits by San Diego attorney Corey Briggs has gotten the attention of a San Diego judge. We first told you about an investigation by our partner iNewsSource that took a closer look at Briggs and his clients. Now we're learning a judge warned him his actions in one case may land him in hot water, including criminal prosecution. I spoke with iNewsSource reporter Brad Racino earlier. Brad, tell us about this case first. Why was Briggs in court?
Briggs was there wrapping up his lawsuit against the city's convention center financing plan. Now, this case has already been decided. An appellate court ruled in Briggs' favor last summer and deemed the city's special tax on hotel owners to have violated state and city laws. Friday's hearing was over Briggs' attorney's fees for the case. But what got brought up was an entirely different matter, that Briggs' client, a nonprofit called San Diegans for Open Government, was suspended by the state at the time Briggs inserted himself into the convention center lawsuit. According to the judge, that's a serious violation of the law. The judge went so far as to put Briggs on notice that anything he said during the hearing could be used against him in the future.
Brad, does that mean the convention center ruling will be overturned?
No. The judge said the new findings would have no effect on last year's ruling, but he said he would not award Briggs attorney's fees for the time period that the nonprofit was suspended, which was about 4 months during the case. He added that Briggs could be in trouble not only with the state bar, but also face criminal prosecution. The judge said there are at least 4 other cases Briggs filed against the city on behalf of San Diegans for Open Government during that time period when the group was suspended.
What was Briggs' reaction to all this?
According to the court transcript, Briggs was smiling. He didn't say all that much for the rest of the hearing, but a few hours later, he filed paperwork to dismiss a completely different lawsuit involving San Diegans for Open Government. This one was from 2013 and challenged the city's Business Improvement District assessment fees, so pretty similar to the convention center lawsuit. There was no explanation for the dismissal on the paperwork, and Briggs wouldn't respond to our emails asking about it. But it turns out the same judge is involved in both cases.
So Briggs won't talk to you. What about the city attorney's office? What do they have to say?
They wouldn't comment on any of this.
iNewsSource reporter Brad Racino. You can read more about the network of nonprofits associated with Corey Briggs at inewssource.org. A productive discussion, that's just one of the few vague details from the first round of stadium talks between San Diego and the Chargers. Peggy Pico checks in with some sports experts about what may be going on behind the scenes.
Neither side is revealing what was actually said at the first negotiation meeting about the more than $1 billion Charger Stadium plan for Mission Valley. We know Mayor Kevin Faulkner, County Supervisor Ron Roberts, City Attorney Jan Goldsmith, and Charger owner Dan Spanos and Team Counsel Mark Fabiana attended the meeting. Joining me for a closer look at what happened or what may be is Jay Paris, a sports columnist for Mighty1090.com, and Liam Dillon, assistant editor and senior reporter at Voice of San Diego. And Jay, the Chargers meeting lasted just over an hour, as they said. What do you think they talked about in that hour?
Well, you know, both sides have complained, Chargers in particular. It's been 14 years in this long process. You think they could have hit the 2-hour mark in this meeting at least, but at least I guess they got done with the introductions and they know where the coffee's going to be and all that stuff. I was hoping for a little bit more substantial meeting considering the lead up to it, and the statement was certainly ambiguous afterward.
Right. What was productive was the statement, I believe, how the mayor put it. And Charger Counsel Mark Fabiana said the city of Carson will continue to move forward. The charges with the city of Carson will continue to move forward on that plan for a shared stadium there. A lot of people could interpret that simultaneous deal of moving forward there and their conversation here about staying here, that's not really, they're not taking them seriously.
Yeah, you know, it's leverage, and they're not going to tip their hand and eliminate one of these cities unless they have to. And let's be clear here: when you negotiate with the NFL, they are going to squeeze, or it is going to squeeze every nickel it can out of you. It's not looking for a fair deal. It's looking for a deal that's top-heavy in their favor.
And Liam, Voices of San Diego is suing the city of Carson regarding documents about conversation between the teams and the city. Tell us more about that.
Right. So we made a request, as many media members do under the records law, to try to help the public understand what sort of the genesis of this deal was in Carson. And what Carson city officials told us is that there was not any documents at all, nothing on email, no text messages, no memos, nothing between the teams and elected officials in the city, and we find that particularly hard to believe. We're talking obviously $1 billion plus real estate negotiation. They weren't talking about it, and so we are suing them to make them prove their opinion in court.
And wasn't there word that conversations started sooner than we previously thought?
Right. So this week there was news about a lawsuit came out that showed that there were allegations in there. There were initial discussions about the Carson deal as far back as 2013, and so again to indicate that there's nothing on paper seems strange to us, to say the least.
And it's not just about Carson, though, right, Jay? There's some other. Tell us about some of the other possibilities.
Well, I think the really one that you got to watch is Inglewood. And Stan Kroenke, the Rams owner, he's got some deep pockets now. And you mentioned Carson, and the Chargers are kind of on the hook already for $20 million up there on a parcel of land. Mr. Kroenke has already put $250 million into an Inglewood project at the old Hollywood Park facility. They're already tearing down the grandstands. He has the money. He has the gumption. He's not afraid of the NFL. And he has a team with an L.A. hook in the L.A. Rams. So while a lot of the focus is on Carson, and that's a nice card for the Chargers to continue to play, I'd be more concerned about them being a tenant in Inglewood with the Rams.
Let's touch on the fans right now. What are you hearing from the fans?
Disappointed, disgusted, almost having stadium fatigue. But I think when earlier in the year when the Chargers said they were going to go into business with the Oakland Raiders, I mean, that was akin to saying, LA's going to move down here. I mean, for a Charger fan to join forces with a Raider fan in anything is a stretch. So I think they're discouraged, and you don't hear the same buzz up or lead up for this upcoming season. Usually people are talking about the draft and the mini camps and what's it going to look like here in September. All the focus is on the stadium instead.
I understand only 1% of the fans actually attend the games in the stadium.
And
that's correct.
That is true.
Let me ask Lima on this. So if the Chargers leave, what kind of political fallout do you think that could have here in San Diego?
Well, I think that there could be some, but I think that the mayor also has to keep in mind that he doesn't want his legacy to be the same legacy that ex-mayors in San Diego have had. Susan Golding is known for her pension problems, but also just as much for bad feelings related to the 1997 renovation of the stadium that turned out so bad for the team and so bad for city taxpayers. And so if he gives away the store, then his name will be mentioned in the same breath. And so it's certainly a tough needle for him to try to thread.
Okay, very unscientific last question between the two of you. I'll start with you. Jay, do you think that the Chargers are going to stay?
I would love for the Chargers to stay. I'm a sports writer, but I just think it's almost NFL has become too expensive for San Diego and what it can offer. And at some point, San Diego might have to say, it's not me, it's you.
Liam?
LA's plan A, San Diego's plan B, but as my boss likes to say, they're the Chargers, so they might fail at plan A.
Liam Dillon, Jay Paris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Demand for non-GMO food is high, but what qualifies as a genetically modified organism isn't always clear. One San Diego biotech has developed new ways of altering plant DNA while still avoiding the GMO label. KPBS science reporter David Wagner explains.
The difference is the base genetics that's underneath them.
On a half-acre farm in Ramona, Jim Radke shows me the neat little rows of canola he oversees as part of his job at a San Diego biotech company called Cebus.
I'm the vice president of product development at Cebus, which means I'm in charge of plants.
The plants here are not for sale, they're for research. Cebus is developing this canola to withstand herbicides, making it easier for farmers to grow. They keep each strain under a fine mesh netting to prevent bees from cross-pollinating the different varieties.
It needs to be harvested all at the same time. This could create problems at harvest if you had a mix. So you want to keep them pure and clean.
Radke has to cut open the net to inspect the canola pods, which look kind of like pea pods, only skinnier.
Exactly. So you have pods, and if you look inside the pod, you will see a number of seeds that are formed. They're pretty small right now, so it's difficult in showing that, but you can just see the small seeds that are formed in there, and you'll have 40 seeds or so inside each pod.
Crush those seeds and you get canola oil. In U.S. grocery stores, nearly all the canola oil comes from plants that are transgenic. That means a gene from some other species, often a bacteria, has been inserted into the canola. Cebus alters canola DNA too, but they don't use foreign genes. They only tweak the genes already inside the plant. Radke says the Cebus approach isn't gene modification, it's gene editing.
Really, it creates mutations not unlike those you're going to find in nature. Okay, if you looked through millions of canola plants, you would probably find the same changes that we are making. We just do it in a controlled way and a lot faster, of course.
Farmers are already growing one strain of Cibus canola commercially. Radke hopes to bring more gene-edited crops to market. He thinks they'll meet a growing demand for non-GMO ingredients.
We all understand GMO to be transgenic. That's the way it's been defined, and as such, we're not GMO.
Customers walking into this Chipotle can't miss the signs bidding farewell to GMOs. The burrito chain recently said it's taking genetically modified ingredients off the menu. That decision appealed to many of the people grabbing lunch here. But when asked what a GMO is, different customers had very different answers.
I define GMO as pretty much anything we actually eat, because we have been eating essentially GMOs as far as there has been agriculture.
My definition of a GMO is a genetically modified organism which is implanted in the crops across America and used either to produce more quantity or better fruiting plants and vegetables.
I'm really indifferent about it, so I'm not sure.
If you're confused about the question of what a GMO actually is, you're not alone.
And these have seed pods.
Even Martin Crispiels, a UC San Diego expert on GMOs, says the answer depends on who you're asking.
A GMO is what you want a GMO to be, I guess. There is actually no universally accepted scientific definition of a GMO.
Crispiel says regulators have one definition of GMO, while activists have another. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says Cibus canola doesn't have to be regulated as a GMO because they don't think it is one. Even in GMO-averse Europe, German food safety officials have classified Cibus canola as non-GMO. But an independent voluntary labeling organization called the Non-GMO Project says Cibus canola is ineligible for their stamp of approval. Jim Radke says whatever you call Cibus canola, it represents the next step in genetically engineered crops.
If we have a technology that can actually be more precise, that can give us exactly what we want, why wouldn't we move that direction?
An overwhelming majority of scientists say GMOs are safe to eat, and Radke agrees. Before coming to Cibus, he worked on transgenic crops himself. Even if transgenic food poses no threat to human health, Radke says it's getting shut out of a market Cibus is positioned to corner.
There's still a lot of people that, right or wrong, say, well, we want non-GM products. And so we have a technology that will help deliver that. We're meeting a market need.
David Wagner, KPBS News.
A tiny parasite may be behind a big problem with bees. UC San Diego researchers say the parasite fungus could be connected to colony collapse. Peggy Pico shows us what's being done about it.
Bee populations in the U.S. have been declining since 2005. Finding out why and ways to save bees and their colonies is important for successful agriculture, farming, and healthy ecosystems. Here with the latest findings on bees and how to improve survival are UC San Diego biological sciences researcher James Nye, co-author of a new honeybee study, and Mark Kukuchek, president of San Diego's Beekeeping Society and a backyard beekeeper. And James, how much of a decline are we seeing in bees here in the U.S.?
So every winter, typically about 30% of managed bee colonies die.
That's unusual. That's changed.
It is. You know, previously and currently in other countries as well, 10%, 15% might be acceptable, but this is really much too high.
Now, your research found a microsporidian fungus infects larvae, and until now, we knew about the fungus for adult bees. So how does this fungus infect larvae, and why is that so destructive?
So it infects the same way. They're basically fed this spore by accident. It infects their gut and reproduces inside their stomach. But what we found is that previously beekeepers would treat using antibiotics and would get rid of it, but then it would come back. So we thought maybe there's a hidden reservoir of infection inside the colony. And we think we found the answer, that the larvae, the young bees that are not being treated by the antibiotics, are re-emerging as adults, and the colony is getting reinfected.
I see. Now, Mark, you've been a beekeeper for more than 20 years, I understand. Have you experienced colony collapse?
Yes, I have. Right now I lose about half my hives every year, a third to a half, so I have to keep twice as many hives for that. But I have one hive that had pretty much typical colony collapse, where with just the queen was left and just a handful of bees, where normally it should have been 20 or 30,000 bees.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. How do you know it's collapsed? What does that look like?
Oh, like I say, you have a nice healthy population, you've got 30,000 bees, and you open it up and there's 200 bees. That's what it looks like. And there's plenty of food, the queen's there's eggs, but there's just no bees, they're gone.
And James, how does this, getting back to this fungus and the connection to larvae, fit into the bigger picture of the decline of honeybee health?
So about 70% of managed bee colonies in the United States are infected with this fungus, with nosema. So it's a known problem. Beekeepers treat for it every year. It doesn't kill them outright, because otherwise we'd have more than 30% dying off, but it interacts with other things like pesticides and parasites, and it makes them weaker, so they're more susceptible when other things hit them. And so now that we know that the larvae can also be infected, we need to see how much of an impact this is and probably develop a new treatment that targets not only the adult bees, but also the young bees.
Well, that was my next question. Is there a way to get rid of the fungus in the larvae and also in the adult bees?
So the adult bees are fed sugar solution with the antibiotic. It's possible that this could be sprayed directly inside the nest at the larvae to basically cure them of the disease, and that's something that needs to be looked at. And there may be other treatments as well that we can pursue.
And Mark, what would you like to see happen here in the U.S. to try to improve bee health in general?
There's a lot of things that we can do, and one of the things we're trying to do is encourage people to keep bees, keep more bees. And so we have bees, and then we would like to see, like I say, not use some pesticides, and then maybe have a better treatment, a more natural treatment for some of the diseases bees have.
And how about you, James? What would you like to see?
You know, I think that this is a problem that has to be approached holistically. I think that President Obama's new initiative of having more wild space with flowers for bees and other native pollinators will be very helpful. He's also planning to increase research funding for basic research, and I think that would be great.
And there's a few other areas that are of concern as well, one of them being pesticides, things like that. What about the drought? Do you see the drought having an impact on bee populations?
That's interesting. The feral bee populations in San Diego are very healthy. Managed bee populations, I think the drought is more of an issue. And also for native bees, however, it definitely is a problem. We have low numbers of native bees this year.
And Mark, how do you tackle it?
Same thing. I keep my bees in a backyard in a suburban neighborhood. We do a lot more irrigation. I make more honey than some of the commercial guys do even, because they're out in the open fields and they don't have as much natural rain, so they have the flowers and what the bees need to make honey.
And have you had to compensate because of our 4-year drought?
Yes. What we have to do is we have to feed our bees in the winter. We feed them sugar water because there's no pollen or nectar so that they can harvest.
All right. Mark Kukuchek and Dr. James Nye, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next news hour, former Treasury Secretaries Robert Rubin and Henry Paulson on improving the U.S.-China relationship. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
For the past 20 years, some of the world's top Olympic and Paralympic athletes have been training in our own backyard. Runners, jumpers, and BMX bike riders are just some of those gearing up for the Summer Games in Rio next year.
Reach forward with your arms.
About 150 athletes have come to Chula Vista to get ready for the Summer Games just 400 days away. San Diego's warm weather makes this year-round training site perfect for almost any Olympic sport. Track and field long jumper Lex Gillette is literally an old-timer. He's been working out here since 2008.
I'm 30 now.
30? What?
Man. But when you talk to me, I was 23.
Gillette has won a silver medal 3 times in the Paralympics with hopes for gold in 2016.
Time flies when you're out here training and trying to compete at a high level, so just got to keep it going and you know, sooner or later, it's gonna be time to get on the plane.
All right, Lex.
Like taking off from a launch pad, it took Gillette less than 5 seconds to break his own world long jump record this past April, leaping 22 feet 2 inches into the sand.
So sometimes I forget that I'm blind.
That's right. Gillette has been totally blind since the age of 10. He says he feels the energy on the track and has a virtual map inside his head of this entire venue.
It's been a remarkable time, an amazing experience. So many great people, and the facilities are nice, and it's my home away from home.
The Olympic Training Center celebrates its 20-year anniversary on Sunday with a free event from 10 to 5 in the afternoon. Gillette will be there along with dozens of other Olympians, from the archery team to BMX dirt bike racers, to greet the public. And some of the notables to train at the Olympic Center in Chula Vista include San Diegan Meb Keflezighi, who won the 2004 silver medal in the marathon, 2010 bobsled gold medalist Steve Holcomb, and the entire 2008 women's softball team. Mild and breezy weather in San Diego with a slight chance of some showers in areas. Overcast along the coast with peaks of sun by afternoon, mid to upper 60s there. Warmer inland with more sunshine peeking through by afternoon, mostly in the 70s the next few days. A chance for some rain in the mountain areas on Friday with temperatures in the 60s. Possible lightning in the desert with temps back into the 90s. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.